In this video, I'll show you how to position a camera and a cross-sectional plane in a 3D model inside Photoshop. For this, I've opened this model of this residence here that I found in the 3D warehouse. It was modeled by Arden. This is one of relatively few models in the 3D warehouse which is fully designed. That means it has an interior with furnishings and interior partitions and so on. Models that are fully designed can be the most compelling in Photoshop because we're going to slice through the model and we'll be able to see the interior in this way. So what I did is I opened this in SketchUp and then I exported it as a DAE file. Once it's in that format, Photoshop can interpret the information. So simply choose File, Open, navigate to the Chapter 9 folder, and select house.dae. Notice that there's also a folder called House, which contains texture maps, which are needed in the 3D model. So click house.dae and then click Open. It takes Photoshop a minute to translate this file format into Photoshop's native 3D layer format, and it's going to assign all of those texture maps as well. Would we like to switch to the 3D workspace? Yes. That gives us the 3D panel and also the timeline along the bottom. By default, all 3D models have a square aspect ratio, which I'd like to change. Go to the Image menu and choose Canvas Size. Change the units to pixels, and type in 1280 by 720 for HD resolution, and click OK, and Proceed. Then double-click on the Hand tool to maximize that window. Right now we have a transparent background, so all we are seeing is the 3D model. Let's go to the Layers panel, rename this Layer 1 to House. And you can see all the texture maps are below here. Let's just collapse this so we don't see all those texture maps. Let's add a gradient fill layer. Open the gradient picker and select black to white. And then click on the gradient swatch to open the gradient editor. Let's tone this down a little bit. Click on this stop, change its color to something a little bit brighter. And then click on this stop, and then click on the color swatch and make this a little bit darker. So we don't have quite as much contrast there. OK and OK, and then drag this to the bottom. Target the 3D layer, use the Move tool, and go to the 3D panel. Make sure that the current view node is selected and that you have Rotate the 3D Object tool selected. Then drag down and to the left to reposition the camera so that we have a view somewhat like this. And then use this tool, which is drag the 3D object, and drag upwards, thereby moving the camera downwards. Then select the Scene node in the 3D panel. This gives us different information over here in the Properties panel. Select Cross Section. This cuts the model. We're seeing a plane which is 50% opaque with a black color. Let's turn that off. And instead turn on Intersection. And let's change the color of that edge color to something orange. Okay. This puts these orange edges everywhere where it's cut. We can also turn on lines. Scroll down a little bit. Let's change the angle threshold to 45 degrees. So it's just going to have lines if there's a surface that changes at least 45 degrees. Let's also change the plane of intersection here. Right now we're slicing along the x-axis. Let's change that to z-axis so that we're cutting more like a plan cut. And then we can also use offset here to move this down or up. So you can cut through the model in the two stories. Now I'm thinking I'd like to create an animation of this building from the bottom up, almost like it's being built from the basement upwards. So I'm going to move this cross-sectional plane all the way down to the lowest level. And when I get close, I'm going to click in here and use the down arrows on the keyboard to move down 1 unit at a time. So it looks like an offset of -21 is sufficient to have that cross-sectional plane just below the house. And this is the place where I want to begin my animation. So in this video, you've learned how to reposition the camera and how to adjust the cross-sectional plane.